Welcome into a Tuesday, June 17th edition of Daily Faceoff Live. Not just a playoff edition, but a Cup is in the building edition of the show. As always, a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. As always, we're streaming on the Daily Faceoff YouTube and looking for your inbox questions. Tyler Yaremchuk and Frank Seravalli. And Frank, this could very well be our final game day edition of the show.
It won't be.
A little bit. Okay. You were saying 7 from the get-go.
Jump Street. I thought it would be very difficult for teams to win 2 games in a row. It's happened once. I don't know if it's going to happen again.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. We're going to have Jon Goyens swing by in a little bit with the coaches room. He'll give us a little tactical breakdown of how this series has played out. But Frank, let's just start with the Stanley Cup once again being in Sunrise for the Panthers. It's not just a chance to win a second straight Stanley Cup. It's a chance to do it again in front of their home fans, which is incredibly rare. But I wanted to start with you, Frank, with a little bit of story time. You've covered a lot of Stanley Cup finals. What's your favorite cup clinching moment that you've covered? When I say that sentence, what's the first one that pops into your head?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's a loaded question. Cup clinching moment has to be 2013, the way the Blackhawks scored twice in, 42 seconds to beat the Bruins. Sitting, I think, kind of near the red line in TD Garden, I don't know. My jaw was on the floor. Everyone around me in the press box, their jaw was on the floor. Definitely one of the most surprising endings to a cup. I had a very similar seat in 2010 for Patrick Kane's OT goal. That's still very strange. Definitely the strangest cup final goal. Definitely some other surprising moments. One of my favorite was in Vegas when Washington won the cup in 5 in 2018. I remember riding the elevator down with the Caps management to the event level. They had celebrated very briefly in the press box and then sprinted over to the elevator to try and join the on-ice celebration. And no one said a goddamn word in that elevator ride. It was completely silent, and they were all totally shocked that they won the cup. And I think they would probably admit to you that it was not their best roster that they had assembled over the last 10-year stretch of period of time. And then to win it in 5 and have it end so quickly, to see the looks on their faces as the doors opened and they walked out to go on the ice, it was like just a million expletives thrown in the air, super loud. And it was fun. So I've had an amazing front row seat, been fortunate enough to have that. Definitely some memorable ones for sure. And anytime there's a game 7, there's just, if we get that later this week, there's just an energy that you can't replicate.
Yeah, it would be absolutely unbelievable. Ahead of Game 6 in Sunrise, some gamesmanship, I suppose. Mark Spector with a tweet. Carter. So in Florida, there's 2 practice rinks, right? One team takes one, the other one takes the other. Well, Carter Verhaeghe was out because the Oilers can't skate till 11. He was on the Oilers, where the Oilers were going to start practice. So Edmonton couldn't get a jump start. They couldn't get on the ice early, and they had a few players that they wanted to. Spector notes that a Florida assistant told the Oilers, wait, they're flooding the ice. The Oilers said, no flood, get the hell off the ice. So a little bit of playoff gamesmanship as well, which is always something you see this time of year.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't buy into that. Your team is booked for the ice at a very specific time, and if you want to go on early, that's your problem, not the other team's problem. So yeah, I don't buy that at all.
Yeah, no, it's still nonetheless a little fun storyline coming from the pregame skates. As we shift focus to puck drop tonight, just after 8 o'clock Eastern time, Frank, it's the Oilers who are in the exact same spot that they were last year. But one thing that's a little bit different is that they've had to change their goalie not just once, but they're going to change their goalie twice, going right back to Stuart Skinner for Game 6 after rolling with Calvin Pickard in Game 5. Do you sit there and go, hey, Stu Skinner, these playoffs, you go back to last year's playoffs, he's been very good when he gets a little bit of rest and they put him back in the crease? Or do you go, oh man, might be some demons. He's been pulled twice in that building already.
I'd say it's probably a little bit of both. He has been a really good closeout goalie toward the latter part of series. And you're right. He's shown an ability to have a hard reset. It's like if you're a certain vintage, taking the game out of your Super Nintendo and blowing on the cartridge and resetting it. But you're too young for that reference. So we'll go with just the hard reset on your phone or your computer back in the day when you would just hold the button in and then wait for it to completely turn off. That's kind of what Stuart Skinner has needed. And look, there's zero doubt in my mind that it's been one of the biggest disparities in this round. It has been Sergei Bobrovsky against whoever the Oilers are putting in net. It's been a huge pain point. The Oilers have yet to find a way to keep the Florida Panthers at bay at any part of really any game. They've either had a lead or they've been able to comfortably score goals at ease. And that part has been tough for the Oilers to swallow. So that definitely stands out as a significant part of this storyline heading into Game 6.
Yeah, and I mean, you can look back to Game 5, the fact that there was the Connor Brown breakaway, then Connor McDavid had two great looks of his own, and Sergei Bobrovsky kept them all out of the net. If Edmonton scores and goes up 1-0 in that one, who knows how the rest of that hockey game plays out? And that ties into the Connor McDavid conversation, Frank. Like, we can sit here and talk about the Oilers' blue line, how effective the Florida forecheck has been in forcing them to, make mistakes and create turnovers. There are a bunch of things that need to go right tonight for the Oilers. Goaltending is probably right at the top. But number two, like, if Connor McDavid just has a vintage video game mode Connor McDavid night, like, it's hard to imagine the Oilers losing if him and Leon Draisaitl combine for 6 points in this hockey game.
Yeah, I mean, even just it's easy to see a path if one of them has a monster game, to be honest. Yep. Don't get greedy and ask for two. But a reminder that when the Pittsburgh Penguins were down 3-2, playing the same team for the second year in a row in the Cup final in 2009, Sidney Crosby looking for his first career Stanley Cup. Heading into Game 6, everyone's thinking, oh, this is Sid's moment. This is the opportunity, speaking of story time, to have Sidney Crosby, etch his name into hockey lore. And he goes Game 6 and 7 without a point. Evgeny Malkin has one. He ends up winning the Conn Smythe after a tremendous playoff run, I think 37 points. But nonetheless, it was some of the grinders. Max Talbot, 2 goals in Game 7. Tyler Kennedy had a big moment in Game 6. And it's not always the superstar players that step up in moments like this. To me, I think you're going to know in the first 20 minutes whether the Oilers have it or not. And they've just been chasing way too much. And part of it also, you mentioned goaltending, you mentioned forecheck. How about just attention to detail? Some uncharacteristic moments in Game 5, but getting beat off of 2 faceoffs, that's not anything other than compete and focus. And so that to me really stands out as, a team that is in a proper position to succeed.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Florida side. Like, you talked about the goals off the faceoffs. Florida's difference makers have been very opportunistic. Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand, both excellent so far in these Cup finals. And it's interesting to see the way that the Conn Smythe odds have flipped from Sergei Bobrovsky being the runaway number 1 on the Florida side to now it's Bennett and then Marchand, and Bobrovsky's actually a distant third. And listen, Frank, I'm not going to ask you for your whole ballot here ahead of Game 6, but what I will ask you is how much between Marchand and Bennett, if the Cup final or if the Cup is handed out tonight, how much of your vote is still undecided for that top spot?
I think it's pretty undecided. I would say. I think I'm comfortable in saying right now that the number 1 spot to me comes down to one of 4 people. It's Marchand or Bennett if the Panthers win, and it's Draisaitl leading and McDavid second if the Oilers win. I don't know yet and haven't decided. I've spent a lot of time wrestling with it and thinking about it, but what happens between Marchand and Bennett, maybe in a clinching scenario, a clinching moment, if one of them has a bigger game, that gives the other one a slight edge. It's undeniable what Sam Bennett has done so far to this point in the postseason, leading the postseason in goals, scoring some of the most goals that we've seen in the last 2 decades in the Stanley Cup playoffs in one run. But Brad Marchand, he's 3-game winners. He's been in huge moments. And yes, Sam Bennett has 5 goals in this Cup final, but it seems like the goals that Brad Marchand has scored have been more consequential, fair to Bennett or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. Again, go back to last game. Brad Marchand scores 2 at just massive moments, right? The first one to really quiet the Edmonton crowd, and then the one that makes it 3-0 in the third period, which absolutely put that game out of reach. I know Edmonton had a little push and pulled the goalie with whatever,
What about
five and a
game
half.
two?
Yeah, and then game 2 as well. Like, if Brad Marchand doesn't score that goal, I mean, his shorthanded one as well, like, those were 2 absolutely pivotal moments. So there is that interesting sort of rating that you need to go through of, okay, it is MVP of the whole playoffs, not MVP of the final. But then even when you get to the final, zeroing it into like, okay, it's not just who had the most goals, who was the most productive. It's like, okay, did you come through in massive moments for your team? How much did you sort of like directly contribute to the 4 victories you needed at the end? And as I say all that, Marchand, Marchand, Marchand. That's all that's in my head.
That's what I was going to ask you. So if I'm giving you a ballot, who are you voting for?
Yeah, I'm Marchand 1, Bennett 2 if the Panthers win tonight. And honestly, based on what we've seen in the final, I don't think there's anything like we had last year where Draisaitl or McDavid would even get a third place vote for me. It's probably Bob getting vote number 3 as well.
Yeah, I'd say you're probably bang on. Bob has been really good. Barkov was really quiet and struggled through the first couple games of this series, although he's been better. And then kind of really quietly, Matthew Tkachuk skating on one leg for a round has 22 points in 22 games. So it's not a shoe-in for Bob, but probably gets that third nod for me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Matt Kachuk's just going to be thrilled if he can get a second Stanley Cup ring. But I mean, I'm sure if you're a Kachuk fan, you're sitting there going like, how come he's not getting more love? Because like you said, playing on one leg and finding a way to be a point per game guy through the whole playoffs, not just in one series. It's wildly impressive stuff. We're going to keep the Cup final talk going in a little bit with Jon Goyens, Frank, but a couple of offseason topics to hit on here, starting with the rating game. I'm going to give you 3 offseason takes. You're going to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Tyler, you're bang on, 1 being that's a horrible idea. Let's start with Nikolai Ehlers. Kind of, I'll say one of the more lesser talked about names at the top of the free agent class. But Frank, I'm going to say Ehlers will sign a max term deal on July 1, but it won't be in Winnipeg. Rate that 1 to 10.
It's probably a 6. You're probably on the right track. I don't know if you can officially rule out Winnipeg. It sounds like they want him back necessarily more than he might want to be back. I think if you're Ehlers, you're leaving a competitive team that has a chance to win, that's going to pay you really handsomely, a place you know and like, I would think, and a place where you've had success. I mean, look at his numbers here. Like, not quite a point per game guy, and he has missed chunks of time, but still gets you 58 to 62 points every season and scores 25 to 28 goals. Those types of players are important on your team as secondary scoring threats. That I also liked what I saw from him in big moments for the Winnipeg Jets in these playoffs and beyond.
Yeah, obviously huge in that Game 7 victory they had in the postseason. Next one, let's go out east. We had Rob Rossi on 3 weeks ago, and he kind of hinted at the fact that, hey, this is going to be Evgeny Malkin's last season in North America. And then yesterday we had the report from Josh Yohe as well. So it seems like all directions are pointing to Malkin playing his final NHL season this year, and all signs are kind of pointing to the Penguins not being that competitive. The take is this, Frank. Evgeny Malkin will at some point appear on your trade targets board next season, 1 through 10.
2. I would say that I don't think Evgeny Malkin has shown a lot of interest in playing elsewhere. I think Evgeny Malkin is one of the last remaining things that's tying Sidney Crosby to Pittsburgh. I think Crosby hasn't really spent much time entertaining, at least as far as I can tell, playing elsewhere. But I think especially doesn't have an interest in making a decision on anything until after his career has wrapped up playing with Malkin. So, look, I think Kyle Dubas would love it. I think he'd like to turn over this roster as soon as possible, but this year is one more step in that process.
And then the last one I got for you was something that just kind of popped up yesterday. The idea of Mitch Marner maybe going more of the Austin Matthews approach again, where he signs a 4-year deal and then tries to cash in one more time before his career is over. What do you make of the idea of Mitch Marner won't sign for max term on July 1? I think it's crazy.
I don't know why you'd leave potentially $60-50 million on the table, whatever the number is, whatever the math is. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, at that point, look, he's already really well taken care of. There's no doubt. never needs to work another day in his life, but I just don't see the appeal of wanting to go through the process again more than anything. I don't love it.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's easy to say that and be like, oh, you could double dip, get one more max term deal at the end. But then at the end of the day, when there's however many millions, hundreds of millions sitting in front of you or 100 million sitting in front of you, it's very hard to be like, I'll risk it to try get a little bit more down the line. So from the big fish on the free agent market to our offseason preview, which today is all about the team that's probably best positioned to acquire a big fish on the free agent market. You look at this Carolina offseason preview board that we put together for every team, Frank. 20 of 23 roster spots filled. Their only free agents of significance are Orlov, Burns, Roslovic. Okay, you could maybe throw in Eric Robinson too, but they have $28.4 million in cap space, Frank. If Carolina wanted to just blow the doors off with an offer to, I'm not just saying Marner, but like any free agent, they absolutely could.
Any trade candidate, really. Remember the Jake Gensel trade from a year plus ago? They didn't give up any of their top 5 prospects. They still have them all. They've drafted it almost as well as anyone. They've got a great pipeline and cap space. And by the way, with their UFAs, all they have to do is snap their fingers and those guys would be back because they've engaged in some discussions with them preliminarily to at least understand or know what those numbers would be to keep them. So they're in a great spot. I would say Utah is best positioned in the West to be able to do just about anything in the world. Carolina would be best positioned in the East to make a similar claim as to how this offseason plays out. But when it comes to going after someone like Marner, I don't see it. You could throw all the money at him you want. If he wanted to come to Carolina and be a Carolina Hurricane, he could have done that in March, but said no. So that would require a very significant change in philosophy for Marner. I think he wants out of the Toronto bubble. I think he wants a chance to win, which Carolina would provide. But I think he also probably wants some sort of semblance of a larger market where he can still be, the guy in a big city, but not necessarily the crushing trend or fame that comes with playing in Toronto.
Just one more on the Canes and the assets they have to deal with. You talked about all their prospects. Yes, they also have Dallas's first round pick now in the 2026 draft. So again, they stockpiled assets with that whole Mikko Rantanen thing, still have themselves in a position to be competitive. And I just don't think Eric Tulsky's going to sit on his hands. I think we go into next season and, hey, you can rate this one. The Carolina Hurricanes have a new top line player added to this roster by opening day next year.
I would say that is a 7.
All right. So closer to 10 than not. I like that, Frank. Let's keep cruising along with the show and get to our big segment for the day. It is the Coach's Room, and it's brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated since 1972. And you can get a custom ring built and delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program. It all comes with their unbeatable pricing policy. Check out their large selection of Canadian lab-grown diamonds and mined diamonds by visiting them online at charmdiamondcenters.com. The Coach's Room with Jon Goyens, former QMJHL head coach. And John, we're digging into Game 6 of the Stanley Cup final. It's the Florida Panthers who have a 3-2 lead. And in our last episode, we broke down, are the Panthers dumping it in too much as the last few games have played out? What has Florida shown us, especially, I guess, with that Game 5 victory on the road that tells us they're maybe a bit more balanced? Oh, you're muted, John.
Well, that's a fine. It looks like it is more balanced, but it looks like Edmonton has backed off expecting the dump-ins. And now Florida's like, wait a second, you guys are giving us racetrack to enter with possession. You look at last game, and I know some of them are, Marchand just playing out of his mind a little bit here, but there's 3 goals on zone entries. And so the other part is sometimes now they're carrying pucks in deeper and buying time for fresh legs to come on, not give Edmonton opportunities to get changes and set up a set breakout. And that stretches out zone time, and that also stretches out time on ice for Edmonton players having to defend. So I find that Florida in transition is really, let's call it spatially aware of space in front or space behind, and managing it better than ever. And as we see in the upcoming clips, it's very evident that they are foaming at the mouth given any opportunity to take advantage of some of the racetrack. Listen, little dipsy doodle, you got to get a piece of them, but look at the gap, right? They're backing off. Edmonton is backing off, and that is on the fringe of a slot shot, and it's still a key opportunity early. You watch here, Bennett goes, you want to back off? Fine. 1 versus 3, gets his stick on this loose puck and almost whacks it in far side. Here, 2-on-2, you great gap, 2-on-2, and now they back off. Now they're backing off. So Florida's like, back off? Fine. We've seen Varhege in the playoffs score from this exact same spot. And when in doubt, in transition on these regroups, they do a wing center exchange on D-to-Ds. Now look at this. It's gone from 3-on-3 to almost Barkov scoring the nicest goal in the playoffs. And then they also, something that I talked about last week was tag up. Instead of just dumping that puck in, they find someone in the middle and carry it. And by getting that puck into that trapezoid, it opens up pockets of space. Also, again, here, quick tag up, go to the middle, beat the line change, and get an opportunity. So here it could be a shot on net or a shot for deflection. Climb pucks, carry pucks to mid-ice. You create multiple 2-on-1s. And again, they're able to go weak side and then backdoor and almost a tap in. And then here are the 3 goals. I know it's off a face-off play. Poor read by Ekholm, but still. Now watch this play. Easy outlet. Where's Chichi Rodriguez-Skinner going with his stick in the holster? That's a terrible, terrible change. If he posts up, he deflects that puck in, that's not a goal against. And last but not least, you go out against the D that you're blocking and you go for that rush, but that was a 1-on-3 rush. There's no reason why 2 out of the other 3 players involved couldn't have taken at least 1 or 2 strides to get their pound of flesh and help out in that moment.
All right, I'm going to give you a golf clap here. We got a Chichi Rodriguez reference. That was outstanding.
You like that?
Going the other way, the Oilers have struggled to create off the rush. Why?
Space. They're just... Florida does such a great job. You know, you want to look at it and go, oh, they play a 1-3-1. They play a 1-2-2. They, you know what? They pressure, regroup. They're constantly looking over their shoulders. And it's not about X marks the spot and Frank, you got to be here and Tyler, you got to be here. And so as that pressure happens, someone's reloading into an area. Then it's their reach. Florida uses their length and their reach to steer plays to the outside or to force those dump-ins. And then when they do that, they already have a weak side guy that's already started to skate forward and jump on loose pucks. So when the racetrack is there, Edmonton hasn't been able to take advantage. And the number one reason, no middle drive. I spoke to a former NHL head coach, and he said, look for this early in the series and throughout the series. Very rarely is Edmonton middle driving. So there's several elements, no time and space. Florida's great with their reach and reloads, but on entries, where is the middle drive? Let's fire up these clips. So here, definitely no room. You got to get it deep, but you can't make it so easy for Bob to play this puck. So weak side's got 2 forecheckers, little tap. Oh, I got nothing clear, up and out. Here, little chip into space. Watch how quickly Seth Jones gets across. Boom, protect. They're going to initiate a battle. Watch this 3-on-5 coverage by the Florida Panthers. You're not getting anything out of this. You're just not. And then here, McDavid. Okay, low place and chase. He's met with 3 Florida Panthers. He's outnumbered. You see Kulikov wanted to go strong side, looks. They a little indirect, and it's out the zone. Here's a little bit of time and space. Schmidt, great job of steering McDavid to the outside. Kulikov forces the delay. Now it's 3 versus 5 once again. And then again, here, you're going to carry the puck. Let's kick it out. And this is that shot everybody thought was going to go in. No middle drive. Paul Goldson decides to fade out to the weak side when he should have middle drive. There's nothing there. So they're going to concede those outside shots. Here's Connor Brown. He's going to lay up. Where's the middle drive? Watch. Nobody wants to go down the pipe and cause Bobrovsky to back off, deflect pucks. And when they do get racetrack, watch what happens. Ekholm jumps up, he kicks it out. Where's any type of middle drive? Everything gets kicked out. Everything becomes perimeter. Here you got a little bit of space. 3 1-on-1s, a 3-on-3. Watch Luostarinen read this handoff to McDavid. And then off this draw, this is something that I think they need to use more of. They need to kick pucks into the middle of the ice and let a guy like McDavid create what he can create. But once again, middle drive's a little late and everything becomes perimeter once again.
So if there was one thing that you could highlight as like the Oilers need to do blank if they're going to win, is it as simple as if they start driving through the middle and get enough cracks at that, eventually they'll generate some offense?
100%. Their opportunities, shot attempts, and shots on net off the rush has been cut by 50% from what they do in the regular season to this series. Because the other part is when you regain possession of the puck, then you get zone time. Well, guess what? They're almost down a full 3 minutes of offensive zone possession time from their regular season average to the last few games in this series. So they got to get away from one and done hockey in the offensive zone.
John, I said Oilers in 5. You said Panthers in 5. We're both wrong right out of the gate. You have a chance to be less wrong than me, though. Do you think the Panthers finish it off in 6, or are we seeing 7?
I see it in 6.
All right, so you're sticking with the Florida Panthers here. Frank and I both think 7. John, appreciate your time. Thanks for popping on.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's cruise along to our daily face-off inbox question. This one's interesting from Joe, and there's a part of me that goes, we'll have a bigger conversation about it if it happens tomorrow. But Joe says, if Florida wins back-to-back cups tonight, are they considered a better dynasty than the Tampa Bay Lightning team that won back-to-back? I mean, you could even throw in, the Chicago teams that won 3 cups, the LA teams that won their cups as well. Where would Florida rank in we'll call them the modern dynasties?
I would say Chicago 1, Florida 2, LA 3, Tampa 4.
Interesting. Yeah, and I mean, is a part of that just because of, again, Tampa won the one COVID one that you don't put as much stock into?
No, it's just Tampa was really good. I mean, they went to a 3rd cup final in a row and ran out of gas and just have absolutely dominant players. Maybe I would swap Tampa and LA. Maybe I go Tampa 3, LA 4. But I still think the fact that Florida has beaten a lot of this same Tampa core this time around in playoffs, I just give the nod, and maybe it's recency bias, to Florida.
Yeah. Joe says, back-to-back days for Ask DFO. You're on an absolute heater, Joe. Let's get to our daily bets for Bet365. Speaking of trying to get on a heater, want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365. They got you. Game props, player props, totals, and money line. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs, must be 19 or older. If you think it can be Connor and Leon taking over this game tonight for the Oilers, you can go Connor McDavid 2 points, a Leon Draisaitl goal, and Edmonton on the money line, and it pays out a very, very juicy plus 475. The Oilers are road underdogs tonight, coming in at plus 135 on the money line. If you don't want to pick a side because you're not sure which way this one goes, let me give you the shot prop parlay, the rat shot prop parlay. Marchand and Perry each to get 3 or more shots on goal. This hit last game. Marchand has hit this in 3 of the 5 games so far in this series, while Perry has hit in 4 straight. Perry back up on the top line with Connor McDavid for this hockey game tonight, and it's plus 650 for something that's hit in 3 of the 5 games this series. Plus 650 is very nice, Frank.
I'm all over the plus 650. You know me.
Yeah, you like that juice. Again, game 7 tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern, puck drop. We'll see if I can come back tomorrow. Would that be plus 11 units richer? Going to need an Oilers win for that to happen. Frank, as we wrap up the show, a little bit of garbage time. And this one caught a couple people's attention yesterday. Usually a team announcing their new assistant general manager isn't big news, but Peter Hanlon is going from vice president of communications to the Flames assistant general manager. What a career path.
Yeah, well-deserved, too. Congratulations to Peter Hanlon, who's such a big part of the fabric of the Calgary Flames. He's been with the team since 1997, rising to vice president of communications. And if you spend any time around the Flames, if you know anything about what they do and how they operate, he's right at the forefront of so much of it, has so much trust from ownership the top levels of the executive with the team, and obviously someone who's been around the game for a long time, 30 plus years. So we've seen this somewhat recently. The San Jose Sharks hired Tom Holy as their assistant GM, where he was previously the VP of communications for the Dallas Stars. So there is some recent precedent. And beyond that, when it comes to player recruitment, player evaluation, all those different things, Peter Hanlon is one of the first touch points that players, new incoming players have, or relationships around the league. So he knows a lot of what's happening behind the scenes, and obviously a really trustworthy individual. So look no further than the message that Johnny Gaudreau's sister put out on Instagram, just saying how much the Gaudreau family loves Peter Hanlon. Take it from them, very closely intertwined to everything that the Flames do, and will obviously be that for Craig Conroy moving forward.
Well said, Frank. That is a wrap on today's edition of the show. We'll be live at noon tomorrow, either talking about back-to-back Stanley Cup champions or back-to-back years with a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup final. Enjoy the hockey game tonight, and we'll see you right back here Wednesday, noon Eastern. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Seravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.